We're all set with Coach MacIntyre, Coach Mike MacIntyre of Florida International University. And this is always a pleasure for us because, as I told you, Lubie, when I first saw Mike at a press conference when they were introducing him as a new head coach, I thought, this cat's great, man. I mean, he could inspire me to get off my fat ass and go out there and start running gassers across the field until I dropped, in a giant schwitz and said, enough already. Mike MacIntyre joins us here on the program, and always good to talk to you. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again.
Morning, well, it's a pleasure, and we're at that point in time, and we're not sure exactly what to make of this because, it was always a big deal, the spring game in college football, and you guys are having a spring game at FIU. At least that's my understanding. Lubie is saying that all schools don't do this to the extent that they used to, anymore. I mean, that a lot of people have a different approach. So, what's your theory on that? The advantages and or disadvantages of a spring game?
Well, it's a lot of fun for the guys to have people out at practice and at this spring game. We got a lot of alumni coming back and a lot of different events going along with it. So we're excited about that. We won't be able to do a full game. We're going to do like a spring showcase. We're going to do about like half a game and then have practice. And then we're going to have fan interaction. You'll have fans calling plays. We're going to have fans catching passes, throwing, catching punts, make it real interactive and have a lot of fun with it. But we'll get some good work done on it.
So I have to ask you, and this is purely coming from a fan standpoint, because I know coaches do things differently, but as a fan, I'm always confused at watching a spring game because either my offense looks good, so my defense looks bad, or my defense looks good, so my offense looks bad. Like, how do you judge it when your team's playing your team?
Yeah, well, we do that in all our scrimmages, and as a coach, you want to see both sides have some good things happen. You don't want to see one completely always dominate the other on that situation. And the other thing you're really trying to do, though, is you're trying to give guys opportunities in game-like situations or scrimmage situations. So you're not really worried as much about the flow of it. You're more worried about individual players having an opportunity to get better and show what they've learned and show their ability. It's very similar to a preseason game in pro football. The wins and losses in that really don't matter. You want to see different players play and see what they can do and give them some expertise, and then you're evaluating. So there's a lot of evaluation. We'll call plays sometimes just to make sure certain running back carries the ball, to make sure a certain tight end has to block, a certain offensive tackle has something happen. We kind of, in a way, script some of that so those young men can get better, because you could go a whole scrimmage or a whole game type special spring game, and certain things don't happen for certain players to show themselves. So it's very strategically done in a lot of sections.
How much transition has your roster gone through? It's a different era in college sports, basketball and football, with the transfer portal.
Right.
Have things taken shape, and how much work is left to do in terms of getting the roster together that you're going to have represent FIU in September?
Right. Now it's constant transition, coming and going. It's a whole different world. You're working with these young men. You're doing everything you can to with them, and so there's some transition. We've had some transition coming and going, and we'll keep having it until really probably June 1st. Is kind of how it all happened. It just keep working its way. It's the way it is in college football right now, and it's definitely a different time for all of us, for coaches and players. But a lot of these young men, that's kind of what they've always known. So we're having to be able to put our roster together and work on that. So there's a little bit of change, but life's changed, right? You got to be able to adapt.
Well, and how has it changed how you approach coaching / the treatment of players? Because it used to be, once you have a kid, he's yours.
Right.
Yeah, you can transfer, but it was such a pain in the butt to transfer that you lose a year. And so were you really going to transfer? Now we've talked about coaches having to recruit not only players out there, but recruit their own players. Has that changed how you coach / quote unquote treat your players? The fact that even when they're there, they're not yours per se.
Right. Well, I think I'm still treating them the way I've always wanted to treat them. I've always wanted to care for them. And at the same time, you have to push them. and you have to hold them accountable. And when kids get held accountable and you're pushing them to get better, sometimes they don't really like that, right? Just like all of us, we go get our trainer in the if you go work out and they're telling you to do 100 more sit-ups, you're like, I don't want to do 100 more sit-ups, you know. So but they still have to be coached, and they understand that. They still have to be team oriented and accountable, but you have to care about them. And you know, academics is an extremely important part of this whole scheme of things. That's why you have college athletics. And so making sure they go to class, hold them responsible for not going to class, hold them responsible for showing up when they're supposed to, how they're supposed to act. You still have to do all those things, or you know, you're not coaching and you're not helping the young man grow at all. So we do all that, but the situation that's come into it is just all the different NIL money and all that stuff. That's where it gets, where it's you can't control some of that. I mean, and so that's where it's a little bit different. I think if they just had the transfer portal and not the NIL situation, you wouldn't see near as many kids leaving and going places at all. Now you'd have a few, but you wouldn't have as many as there is right now in the country.
Yeah, I mean, you have a guy that's dedicated to a school and seems to represent everything that they stand for, and then all of a sudden he shows up at Notre Dame for his last year of eligibility. And how out of control is it, Coach? I mean, do we have any idea what's really going on when it comes to you know, well, these kind of transactions on the college level now?
There was great intentions with the NIL, and some of the young men have it. It's legitimate for some of them. Some of the others, it's a wild, wild west. It really is. And I've heard people say, well, people got to turn people. Well, you know, we're turning people in. So we'll see what happens as it goes along. And we're excited about our future here. And it's just the way it is right now. And I think it'll level out after a while.
All right, so curious about a couple of things. You know, naturally, there's always, except for this year, it seems like it's a non-topic here in town in South Florida. The draft was always a big thing. I've been broadcasting here for 42 years. Where we used to have people calling about the draft as soon as the first snap was taken in the Dolphin season. People would be calling talk shows, going, who should we draft next year to get this team off the mark? You know, we want to do better. So there was always an obsession with it. I don't sense it as much because the Dolphins traded away a lot of their draft their draft cash that they had on hand, and so there's not as much interest. But if do you think somebody's going to make a mistake with this Richardson kid? I mean, you've seen him out of Florida.
Right.
Would you take a chance? And you were in the pros. I mean, coaching with the Jets, who have made more than their share of mistakes in this regard. But and hopefully, you know, that trend will eventually resolve itself, so that we closet Jet fans can come back and actually admit that we rooted for the team at one point in time.
Jets, Jets.
Yeah. I mean, would you take a shot on this guy if you were a general manager? I mean, a very high position in the draft, thinking we can take this raw talent, which looks sensational, and correct what seems to be his one tragic flaw, which is the inability to find his own wide receivers.
Right. I haven't watched enough. You know, they dissect that. They meet with them. They do everything. The one thing that Coach Parcells used to always say, and I thought he did a good job with quarterbacks, even his first one at the Sims at the Giants, he brought from Morehead State, and everybody goes, what is he doing? Coach Parcells had kind of a formula. He had a formula. And when he looked at players, there was a lot of things that checked the box. And one of his check boxes was amount of plays the person has played, the amount of games they've played, the amount of things they've seen. Is a big deal. And so I always thought that's an extremely important factor for a quarterback because that's how they're trained. That's how they get better. And so I don't know much about Richardson. I know he's a phenomenal athlete. It looks like he has a great arm. I don't know all the everything else, but that was one of the big keys that Coach always took into thing is how much have they played? Because I think that gives you the best, parameter because you see every situation he has happen to him.
Well, and we always have this question, and I get it. Physicality, you can only get so much better. If you're 6 foot, you're 6 foot. Like, so if someone's physically a specimen, that is impressive. But we've also heard if you're inaccurate, you can improve, But over the years, it's been more times than not found the guy with the big arm who's inaccurate for more times than not is going to be the guy that's a big arm and inaccurate. Like when it comes to inaccuracy, we don't have to name a player. You've been around the game a long time, pros, college, other forms. How plausible is it to assume or think you can correct inaccuracy when it comes to a quarterback?
Well, you know, the young man that just signed the big contract the other day, Jalen Hurts,
yes,
to me is an example of a guy that you heard that with, correct, throughout his career.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. He played a lot of football. He played a lot of football.
He did.
And so he was able to keep training himself, working himself. I actually heard I heard Nick Saban talking about him, and Jalen's a phenomenal young man. I saw him play in high school when I was coaching at Colorado, and just a great person, great athlete, comes from a coaching family. Coach Saban said the year that Tua took his spot, because Tua was known for accuracy. That's what he's known, and Jalen, he took his spot, and Jalen stayed. He could have left. Jalen stayed, and that whole year, Nick told him that, hey, you need to work on your accuracy. You need to work on your footwork. You don't need to, and you don't need to just take off and run, sit in the pocket, work on this. And the young man did. He took it. He worked on it. He improved. And then he left, and Coach Saban said, you need to go someplace where they have a good team around you, and they train quarterbacks. And he went to Oklahoma, and he played a lot and got better. And then when he got in the league, he kept working on it. So to me, he's an example, but he played a lot of college football. And he trained himself for a while, and I think he used all 5 years, correct, in college.
Yeah, he might have gone 6 or 7. Yeah.
So I mean, that helped him do what he's doing now. Again, it's repetition. It's doing it over and over. It's training yourself, because you can't. We all like it, but you can't train I can't fix my golf swing in a month, right? So it takes a while to do it. So I think that would be an example of a guy that was able to do it and has done it at a high level.
There are those of us that you could never fix our golf swing.
Exactly right.
The only way to fix it, I fixed mine by throwing my clubs in a canal when I was playing in the charity scramble about the 16th hole. I just said, that's it. I'm never doing this again. This thing is a farce. What is the most important characteristic that you look for, or does it vary from player to player when it comes to a quarterback, though? I mean, if you had, one tenet and you said, this is absolutely a must, this guy must, has to have if he's going to be successful, what would it be? What would it be? A physical aspect, mental? I mean, what would you take a guy with a big arm and say, I can do something, with like a Vinny Testaverde?
I think with a quarterback, it's really, truly, when you look at all the ones that have done well at any level, you kind of watch them and you go, that person has the it factor. And it's hard to explain, but they can see the field. When they throw an interception, they're not down. They go right back out and attack it. They uplift their players. They're coaching them all. They understand everything. I think one of the best things is how can they handle everything emotionally and mentally. That is the key for a quarterback. And you don't know till they kind of go through it. You can watch it. You can see it. I look for that a lot in high school players as we're signing them, or a junior college quarterback. I had a young man that played for me at San Jose State that we signed out at a junior college named David Fales. He was a backup for the Dolphins for a few years. He had the it factor. He could see the field. He could do it all. He played, I think, 10 years in the NFL. But for us, he was amazing. He was a leading percentage passer in America when he played for us at San Jose State. And nobody wanted him but us. And I saw him play. I saw him throw. The way he communicated, the way he could handle things. We were able to, we figured that one out. So I think the intangible factors of the mentality during a game, the able to see things, the emotional stability, the confidence, and then arm accuracy. And I think, so that's kind of how that works with doing it. And a lot of those, you got to be around them to see them do that. You have to, see them play, see them be in certain situations, see how they interact, see how they communicate, see how they think, see how they handle pressure. Is extremely important.
All right, spring game coming up. You're going to get a look at your team in action, and a lot of festivities surrounding that. The details again, Coach. How can the fans come out and enjoy these activities?
Yeah, it's going to be a great night. 6:30 Saturday night. It's going to be a beautiful night. We have all kind of things set up. We got all these play things for kids, and we have areas set up for the alumni. We have an area for adults and different things. It's just it's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of excitement. So show up here at 6:30. It's free. Come on in.
Oh, nice.
And we'd love to have everybody show up if they can, and we're excited about it.
Coach, always a pleasure. Best of luck with that, and we hope to talk many times, you know, in the future, near and you know, throughout the season. And it's always a pleasure having you on the show. We really appreciate you coming on.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Next time we can talk a little NBA basketball. I like that. So.
Oh yeah, I didn't know you were an NBA fan. I mean, who you were a fan of?
Yeah. So that'd be good. All right. Hey, have a great one. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Coach Mike MacIntyre.